what would you sacrifice? Like, what would you, would you spread the gospel, and would you be strong in your faith if it was not popular?
Welcome back to another episode of the Rough Cut Club. I am your host, Joey Nicotra, here today joined virtually with my co-host, Mr. Shane Reitzammer. Shane, unfortunately, cannot be in the studio with us today, but he is joining us virtually, and so we're excited to have him. Today is a very special episode because we are joined by somebody who we actually crossed paths with, I'm going to say almost 4 years ago now. It's been a while, and so I think it was 2020, if not early 2021. But she is an amazing and exceptional actress who has done films like Overcomer. She did the TV series Nashville, the first feature film that I was able to DP, Washington's Armor. And now most newly in her upcoming movie, Disciples in the Moonlight, welcoming to the show, Miss Micah Lynn Hanson. Micah, welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so stoked to just see both of your faces and wish I was in person, but this is the next best thing. So
yes. Well, it's so good. One, just reconnecting with actors and actresses and just friends in general who we've done projects together with and have actively been in the trenches together of the long nights and early call times. And so it's good to see you just in person again. And so, well, not in person, but virtually, but always love connecting with friends who I've been able to work with in the past. And so thanks again for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah. So before we get into like your newest movie, Disciples in the Moonlight, I did want to just jump in on like the whole Washington's Armor thing and take us back to that and just say like, one, it was a great experience, but I was actually blown away by your performance just in that. And I remember that was one of my first times when I was like, man, this girl really is just like incredible. Like I remember some of the scenes that we did out, I think like at the plantation, and I like was watching and got chills, and then like watched the performance again, like in the theater, and like got chills again. I was like, dude, this girl is so good. So it was just a really great experience for our first interaction.
Oh, that means more than I can say. That the scene that we shot, the one out in Virginia, right? Is the one that you're talking about?
Yeah, it was in Virginia.
That to this day is probably like my favorite scene I've ever done. Like I remember, I don't get super nervous all that easily, but I remember like being in the dress and my hair is, teased up to high heaven. And I like walk out and there's like real fire and there's horses and it's like raining. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is a lot. And I have to like speak with this accent and it's like old English. And I was like, oh my gosh. But you guys and the team were just all so wonderful that after you get that first take jitters out, it was phenomenal. So that was a very, very special project.
Yeah. You and Willie.
I absolutely love that scene. I'm so sad that I missed the Virginia leg of production. But Micah, I can't believe you didn't say your favorite scene was where I filmed your feet in the saloon for like 3 hours. We had this long take. Micah and I both were like dodging all of these extras in background, and we had this whole thing mapped out. It was only like maybe a 30 or 45-second take. But we probably ran it, 6-7 times. We were both just exhausted after
I think I blocked out how many times we had to run it. You had the much harder job. I just had to like walk.
Hey, you did some excellent feet acting for sure.
Thank you.
It was great. Yeah.
Thank you. I will put that on my resume. Fantastic foot actor.
Well, before you were an amazing foot actor, I want to take us all the way back to. I just want to give the audience a little bit of your backstory, just getting into the industry, kind of establish who you are. So before you were an exceptional actress, take me back to how you kind of got into the business.
Yeah. So I actually started in musical theater. I was a super shy, awkward homeschool kid. I didn't know that acting was a real profession. I didn't know that was something I could even do. But I just loved watching people, and I was always like making up stories in my head and kind of like acting them out in my head. And I had a bunch of siblings. And so we would always, as kids do, play make believe and all that stuff. But yeah, my sister brought home a newspaper clipping that there was auditions for a children's theater production of this little musical called A Little Princess. And it was like the next day or something. And I was like, I'm going to do this. And my parents were like, who are you? Because like I was excruciatingly shy. But I went and auditioned and like just totally found myself. Like I never felt more at ease than being on stage, which again was a very weird, bizarre thing for me to be naturally like feel at home doing. But I just loved it. And I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be. And so that's where it started for me, was musical theater. My heart will always be with musical theater. And I hope to get to do it again on like a big level someday. But film is a different type of acting, really. But I also just fell in love with the art of filmmaking as well. And so, yeah, that's kind of where I got started.
I love that. We've met. I was also homeschooled my whole life. So
okay.
high five homeschool team. Woo! And it's so interesting. I feel like a lot of homeschooled, and maybe it's just the circles that we're running in, but a lot of homeschoolers gravitate towards the arts.
Yes.
I've met a lot of them in filmmaking and acting and theater. And so that's awesome to hear, and overcoming that shyness, right? And the, anxiety of being on stage and in front of people. And then like what Joey and I were saying, like we can't tell that at all when you're on, in front of the camera now. So it's an awesome, career path that you've gone out. I have to ask going back to Washington's Armor, what was one of the hardest days that you had on that set?
Oh, for sure. The very first day, my first day of shooting, which was in the soundstage in Texas in May with no AC and melting. We were absolutely melting. And it was this huge, I don't know if either of you on that first initial
Yes.
shoot? I think
yes,
you
that
were.
was actually that was another long take that we did together, actually, Micah, because that was the ballroom scene.
Yes.
And this was the earlier part of Washington's Armor Legs.
Yeah.
So this might have been 2020. Yeah. This might have been 2019 or 2020.
That was 2019. And then everything after that was 2020. But definitely that day, really just because the costume is so restrictive and us females are not used to being in like a corset anymore today. And so my back was in so much pain and I was so hot, and getting that one take, like one thing would go wrong and would be like, yeah, go again. I'm just like, oh no, like there's a picture of me that I find hysterical, and it's me in this gown and everything. And I have like a frozen bottle of water and I just like have it sitting on my neck. And I'm just like this, like just totally sprawled out. So I don't do super well with heat. So for me, it's usually if I'm overheated, that's going to for sure be my worst day on set.
It sounds,
there's nothing you can do about it. It's just how it is.
And again, it sounds like I'm the problem here, Joey. It was another long take dimple situation.
You're the common denominator.
That day was so hard for me for a variety of reasons, but I had a ton of gear malfunction. So we actually started that scene really late because I was outside trying to diagnose a faulty piece of equipment. We actually shot that. Why we probably had to do so many takes is we had to shoot it without follow focus. So I had to maintain a distance. I set my focus and had to maintain a distance of 4 feet from every point of interest in that film. So we kind of had to reblock so that the camera was always following something of interest. And so that whole thing was about the dance that you and Willie, George Washington did. It was definitely another dance with camera and hitting all of those marks. But yeah, that's great. Well, I hate to be the 2 long takes that you blocked out, but yes, that was one of the hardest days on set for sure. And Texas gets hot, and it was not ventilated in there.
No. And then they're like pumping in the fog and stuff. And so it's just more humidity. And at the time, like I was just fully unprepared. I've lived in the South for a while, but I was like, oh man, I've never lived in Texas. Like Texas is another level. So.
Well,
Yeah.
Micah, I want to talk about your theater upbringing really quick before jumping into Disciples. But I've talked to several actors before who have had a background in theater. And sometimes the transition from theater to film is kind of difficult because you're used to getting that immediate audience like reaction and like response in real time to understand like how like to almost feed off of their energy as well. Do you feel like it was difficult for you to transition from doing theater and almost dialing down your performance a little bit? Like, tell me a little bit about how you transitioned out of that theater mindset into a film mindset.
Yeah. So it was funny because when I first got into theater, every director that I ever worked with, the note that I got so much was like, bigger Micah, louder Micah, for the back row Micah. And everyone would say like, you'd be a really good film actor. Cause I think I just had a very subtle way of acting. And so it was kind of like I had to train myself to be this, big in the jazz hands and the project to the back of the room kind of moment. And then once I got into film, I was like, oh, I have to like untrain all of that. Yeah. And I don't think I'm really like, I've never really taken acting classes. I've tried little things here and there because everybody says like, you've got to be in classes, and I'll go to a class and the teacher will be like, like, they'll just give you some really weird, like, just jump in the river and see where it takes you. And I'm like, huh? Or when they're trying to make me smaller, they're like, don't be quieter, but be quieter. And I'm like, what? Like, I just don't get it. And I'm like, huh? So it's really been trial and error for me of like figuring it out. I think really for me, it just went back to like, as a young kid, like I just loved watching people, and I could like feel what was on them almost. And I don't know how to explain it. The best way I can explain it is like, I know what a feeling looks like on me, if that makes sense. And so I just will lean into that feeling instead of trying to really emote the feeling, really just sit with it and let it be, I guess, more real instead of pushing it, but yeah, it was definitely a little bit of a transition. I think because I naturally lean toward being more of a film actor, it wasn't terribly difficult, but it definitely took some time, and just, it's a different language. Film is a different language. You have to, learn the different departments and the different lingo and all this stuff. And then the acting side of it. I think the hardest part for me is still to this day, I don't really have a process when I do like film. Because in theater, you show up for rehearsal and you rehearse and you rehearse and you rehearse, and then you perform and you perform and you perform. And film, I still get really sad when it's like, oh, we got the take and we're moving on. And I'm like, oh, but I just got there. Like, I wanted to like sit in this. I wanted to like be this character for a while. And so I think I enjoy the process of theater a lot better, like a lot more, because I think it's an actor's form. I think theater is the ultimate actor's platform. And I think film is the ultimate like director or editor's kind of platform. And so I'm still kind of figuring out like, oh, what is my method, or what is my technique for film? Sometimes it's memorizing it while I'm in the makeup chair. Sometimes it's looking at sad cat videos to make myself cry. Like, there's no rhyme or reason to it. It's a hot mess express over here. I'm very much I think it's, is it Stephen King? He says there's like outliners and then there's pantsers, and like a pantser is somebody who just like flies by the seat of their pants when it comes to like their art form. And I'm very much a pantser. I throw it to the wind and we see what happens, which so far has worked out. I don't know how that will serve me going forward. I don't recommend it to anybody, but that's my process right now.
I love all the different processes that I get to hear from people, like one just in general, but also on the show. But even just the mindset of like, once we get a take and you're ready to move on and you're like, wait, like I want to continue doing this. I want to refine it and like just kind of, savor the moment almost. And it's funny, just the different mindsets, even between the different department heads, like when we're like, oh, we finally got this take. Okay, great. Let's move on. We're going to make our day.
Yeah.
But like, you're also at war with like, this is my craft and what I love to do. And like,
Yeah.
I want to keep like refining this moment. And there's so many just like waging wars of like different people's art that are happening within a film set. I love just the picture
it's
that
such a team sport. It's such a team sport. And that's, I think, what makes it so fun.
That's amazing. Well, I want to jump into Disciples in the Moonlight. That's your upcoming film coming to theaters July 17th, mid-July. And so, one, congratulations on that. It looks amazing. I saw the trailer and I was definitely blown away. It is Hollywood quality for sure. And the acting looked amazing. But can you give us a little bit, I guess, really quick to prequel this? It's essentially about a futuristic, but not too futuristic, like present reality, if you will, a futuristic present reality. Yeah, that makes sense. A not too distant future reality where the Bible becomes illegal and a group of people are smuggling the Bible to an underground church with the government basically at their heels. And so was wanting to see, one, if you could give us a little bit more insight into the film, kind of what it's about, and then the role that you also played within it.
Yeah. So this film is actually, it's a very cool story. My very first self-tape ever, which for people who don't know, as an actor for film, you will tape yourself on camera, you'll do your lines, and then you'll send it to casting and they will either cast you or not. So the very first self-tape I had ever done was for this little film back in like I think it was 2015, maybe 2016. And it was this film called Disciples in the Moonlight. And I was auditioning for like this little tiny character. Again, I'm just getting into the film world at that time. And then I get an email back saying that, we're having to postpone this film. We'll be in touch, when we start casting again. And at this point, it's been like 6-7 years or something. And then by this point, I've become much more established as an actor and really honed my craft and had become really great friends with the director and producer of the film and got an audition to play one of the lead characters' wife in this film. She's very much like a support to the mission that is happening with them smuggling Bibles. And it was just really cool to have such a very full circle moment where it's like, I auditioned for this like 7 years ago for like a one-line role, and then 7 years later, I get to be a part of it in such a bigger way. It was very special. But yeah, the film itself is, it's an action thriller, which I think is really fun and different for the faith-based sphere. We don't get a lot of those in the faith-based genre. But yeah, it really begs the question of, what would you sacrifice? Like, what would you, would you spread the gospel, and would you be strong in your faith if it was not popular, if you were on the outs, with the majority? And it gets people thinking. So, and it's fun. It's dark and edgy, and it was a really great project to be a part of.
That's amazing.
Where was the majority of the film shot at?
It was all shot in Indiana. So Brett Varvel, the director, producer of it, and the writer, they all live in Indiana. And so it was all local to Indiana. And the story itself is set in those kind of flyover states where it's like, we're trying to get Bibles over to Kentucky and, Ohio or whatever. And so it's not it's New York or, it's LA. It's just your average, the farmers, the truck drivers, it's what I love about the cast too. It's a very diverse cast. It's a very wide range of ages and ethnicities. And it's pretty cool. It was a really great group of people that came together to make it happen.
That's awesome. You mentioned that like you don't really have a process for when you get a role. Was there anything specifically that you did with this film to prepare for it or really find yourself getting into character?
Oh goodness. I think my biggest process is always talking to the director and really asking them like, how do you see this character? Because my job as an actor is to give the director what they want. give the director their vision for this character. Obviously, I'm going to bring my own flavor. I'm going to bring my own nuance to the character. But at the end of the day, as an actor, that is my job. It is not my job to be creative and to be the star or to take all the attention. My job is to make it so the director is like, cut, moving on. And so my process is really just chatting with the director. I'm like, what is important to you about this character? And so that was probably my biggest process with it. And then otherwise preparing for it, I mean, this character is, I am this character. She's, a female in her 30s living in United States, there wasn't a ton of like, there's no dialect prep or anything like that. So it was really for me just memorizing lines and making sure that I have those lines like really down pat so that in the moment you can play, in the moment you can ad lib a little bit. Or if your scene partner throws something at you, you can stay in your character and know your character well enough and know your lines well enough that you can, ad lib and play a little bit, but stay on task, still get the writer's story across.
Was this your first time working with Brett Varvel, the director?
No, this was actually my third project with him.
Okay. So
I met him. Yeah. So I met him. We both were just actors in the other films we had done before. This was my first time working with him as a director, though.
Got it.
And he ran such a phenomenal ship. It was one of the most chill sets I'd ever been on. There was never a lot of like, we're racing the clock or, any kind of hecticness. It was a really smooth sailing ship. They did such a great job.
So, the relationship with like the directors and actors is, one, it's always in flux, right? Because you're working with different directors, you have different relationships with them. One, you already had like a pre-existing relationship with this guy, like as an actor, and then now like he's in the directorial seat. So how would you say like his vision for the project was influenced or influenced your performance, if that makes sense? Like, did you guys have, I don't know. I would say just take that wherever you feel comfortable. Like how did it influence your performance?
Yeah, we had several conversations, just like phone conversations of what he was hoping for this project. He sent me all the mood boards. He sent me my character's mood board and, all of that. I think that's really, really helpful. I think coming from a theater background, for me, I don't feel like the character until I'm like in costume. That's why I really don't like when I have to bring my own wardrobe to set sometimes on lower budget things. I'm just like, oh, I just feel like myself. Like I wanted to feel like this character, and so having those types of things, I think really helped me just breathe life into this character and find parts of her that are also me or pieces of her that I don't identify with and make those feel natural for me. If the character says something, I'm like, oh, I would never say it that way. How can I either maybe change the verbiage a little bit? He was very collaborative and was very much like, I trust you. Like when you have the trust of a director, that's super liberating.
Yeah.
And they're like, I trust you. Like, have fun with it. Don't feel like you have to stick to the words verbatim at all. Which sometimes, because the writer was also on set the whole time and you're always like, oh, I don't want to like offend the writer if I don't get it like word perfect. Because theater, it has to be word for word. You cannot ad lib. It has to be the way it was written. And so in film, it's really fun that you can make it a little bit more of your own. And I love when you have the trust of the director where they're like, bring you to it. Let me see it, So I think Brett was really good because he is also an actor.
Yeah.
I love having a director who gets it and is more of an actor's director than like a technical director. Obviously they're both wonderful in their own ways, but selfishly, I love when there's a director who can speak actor, and can understand and give me the time and space or, just a little, like he can come in and be like, hey, try this, and it's just really fun. It's fun when you have that trust and that camaraderie where you feel relaxed enough where you're like, okay, I can play. And if it's terrible, we'll laugh about it and we'll try it again or we'll move on, Yeah.
I was on a project recently where I was working with a director and they essentially were like, hey, I want you to do the line like this. And like they did the line and whatnot. And I was talking with like the crew after wrap and one of the guy actually posed like an interesting kind of question or just thought provoking thing for me. And he was like, when directors, and it's probably different a little bit even in this circumstance, but he was like, when directors tell an actor exactly how they want an actor to do a line, the actor is then limited by the performance of the director. And I was like that line kind of like took me, like, it made me think about it, because on one hand, a director's job is to like provide all of the direction and, obviously, be Geppetto for the film. But on the other hand, like an actor can also bring something very unique to a project, and bring their own character to it. If the character is cast like correctly, then they bring something amazing to the project and bring their own uniqueness to it. So my question for you is like, is there, and this is just directing in whole, as a whole, but like, is there a specific amount of, like, how much direction is too much direction? Or do you just love like all the direction you can get? Like, how do you walk the line between like what you uniquely bring to a project versus like uplifting the director's vision for a project?
Yeah. I think I've learned, and this is not something I did at the very beginning. I think when I first started, I had a little bit more ego to me. I try to walk into it fully with the mindset that my entire job is to make the director happy. And so I am also somebody, I love a lot of direction. I love a lot of like, hey, do this or that. I love that. I'm not somebody, I also don't get offended if they give me a line read where they're like, hey, why don't you just say it like this? Now, I appreciate when they really, I've even asked a director before, because she was trying to explain it to me and I just was not getting it. And I was like, say the line how you want to hear it. Just like, let me hear it so that I can kind of get what's in your head. And then I can go off of that. Now that's really only if like, they're just not getting what they're looking for. I don't think a director should have to give you a line read on every single line. If they do, you probably were cast incorrectly, or they're just a young kind of micromanaging director. Because it is different. Like you said, the Geppetto, like we're not puppets, we don't have to be moved and propped and all of that, like we have a life to us. We are the real boy Pinocchio who gets to bring so much more to the character. And so, yeah, I like a lot of direction. I do. I like a lot of direction. I like asking questions. And then I like when it's just like, okay, go for it, and then, I'm not an actor who's offended if the director is maybe a little, too detailed with their explanation. I really, really try to make it that this is a team sport. This is not about me. Yes, I'm going to be the face that's like on the big screen in this shot. It's my close up or whatever. But it also takes a lot of pressure off of you when you put all of the attention. I think I learned this listening to Robert Downey Jr. on the Off Camera podcast with Sam Jones. I love that podcast, and I love Robert Downey Jr. is like one of my favorites. But he was saying, as an actor, it's your job to put all of your attention on the other character. Like all of your attention goes on them. It shouldn't be on you. Like the minute that you can take your attention off of yourself and put it on the other person, that's when you have good acting happening. Because in real life, that's what makes a good listener. That's what makes a human people want to be with, is somebody who gives so much more than they're trying to take. So I try to take all of that into my acting and be like, okay, I didn't like that take, but if the director has what they want, well, we're good. I'm going to trust them. They trusted me. I'm going to trust them.
That's
Love
amazing.
That. Trust, I feel like, is such a big word in the industry on all different departments, right? There's so many different levels of trust between the director and the cinematographer, the director and the actors, the cinematographer and the gaffing, the lighting department. And I absolutely love this discussion about directing, because it's, I direct commercials and small projects, and I'm always trying to learn and observe what will put the actors in a better spot to kind of make the project come to life. So I think these are all great things that I'm taking pieces from this conversation. What, on the flip side of it, for our listeners out there, maybe, newer directors as well, what are some on-set icks that you don't like directors to do? And let's not even limit to directors.
Yeah.
let's lump in everyone on set. So like, what are some of the things that can be distracting or mess up your flow on set as an actor?
Yeah. My biggest one is like, don't come up and just move me. Like, I'm a person, communicate what you would like done. Cause sometimes, and I know people don't mean ill by it. I was never like harmed or anything like that. It's just, it's not necessary. Don't yell at me from behind the camera, and don't just come up and be like, and touch me and move, always be like, do you mind if I, can you adjust this way? Like, there's always time to be gracious in that way. Being yelled at from across the room or behind the camera, again, it doesn't make me feel comfortable and safe when you're yelling, even if it's a good note, always try to be able to talk just person to person. If you're, at a long distance and be like, hey, let's try this, fine. But don't be like, you missed your mark, like that's just, it's not cool. Like that's going to shut you down as an actor. So just common decency, give yourself the time to, as a director, give yourself the time to be very as personable as you can be with your talent and with your crew. Like, everybody's going to work a lot better when it's, when there's not the yelling and obviously things get heightened and, you're racing the clock and things can get really, stressful, but, become good under stress, become good under pressure, and you'll totally succeed as a director or in any department in the film industry. If you can maintain, a calm demeanor and a grace about you, under intense pressure, then you're pretty set in my standings.
Those are great. We got to add also having an AC blasting and maybe a cold frozen water bottle nearby, right? For those hot days.
Yeah, absolutely. And a fan. I don't go anywhere without a little battery operated fan where I'm like, because I'm also a makeup artist. And so I've been on set and I always let the makeup artist know, like, keep this in your bag for me because I will sweat off all of the work that you just did if you don't have it. So it's in your best interest to keep my body temperature down because I will overheat in a second.
That's awesome. When I look back at any like big project that I've done in the past or any movie or large project, like I feel like I forget some of the details that made up the day, but I always feel like there's like a few big like encompassing takeaways where I look back at that project and remember like this special thing about it, or just like something that makes up the memory, right? Like a special memory from that project. Do you feel like with this current movie you have some special takeaway or something that kind of encompasses this project for you and this like experience to create this film?
I think this one in particular, what I think a lot of filmmakers do that I think harms them in the long run is they will rush into something. They'll be like, I have this idea, and they just do it. And they execute it maybe before they have the right funding, before they have the right talent or the right DP or the right equipment, and they just want to get it made, which I totally understand as a creative person. Like, you have this vision, you just want to see this vision come to life. With this particular project, I think the patience that they had in waiting, obviously it's a faith-based film, so they were very prayerful in how they went about making the film, and the people that they brought onto it, and just every aspect of it. You could tell they weren't in a rush to get it made. They wanted to get it done right. And I think there's a lot of wisdom in, it's better to do one good project and have every department very competent, and maybe you're pulling in your favors, which this one I know they did. They pulled in a lot of favors, which I think every director, every filmmaker gets that right to like call in your favors. Like, I don't have the money, but would you do it? And I will absolutely. I'm still waiting, Shane, for you to call me on your film because I'm waiting. I'm going to be in one of your shorts, feature, whenever you do it.
We got some ideas already going. So yeah,
it's on my bucket.
We'll make that call for sure.
Perfect. But yeah, I think it's better to do it well than to have 12 projects out there that are kind of like subpar. That's not to say that you shouldn't get with your friends. If you're young and you're just learning, like, go make the thing, go shoot the film, go do that. But when you know the potential that it has, do it well, and do it well the first time.
I love that so much. I think it's really easy for, like you said, for creatives to rush into something before they're prepared. And I have been on projects where there has been a lack of preparedness and everybody suffers and the film suffers ultimately. And it's like, I do think that I think that there are ways to do something even with extremely limited resources, but I think that what can really help fix that is proper pre-production and really, really ironing out the details. Movies are made in pre. They're not made on set. They're not made in post. Yes. They're made in pre-production. And I think that if you have a very limited budget, if you have very limited resources, the proper pre-production is the antidote to helping make the film set a good experience 100%. And a good film at the end of the day.
Yeah. And then having, especially, I think the keys for every department, making sure that your keys are all people that you trust and that will be there with you to see it through to the end. Not just, like you said, they've got to be there they've got to be there through the post and be ready, just somebody that you can trust on an emotional level, on a spiritual level, on a just friend level, and their skill level. I think that's really, really important. And this film, Disciples in the Moonlight, I don't know what the budget was. I know it was minuscule compared to what it looks like. They did such a phenomenal job because I think they really killed it in the pre-production. And then they had those key players that were there for the people and for the project and the passion of the art and the craft, not for the paycheck.
So awesome. So awesome. I'm really excited to see it. It looks amazing. This film's like center point is around the conversation of one of the more taboo, conversations of mixing religion and politics. Right. And so I'm curious what you feel like this film contributes to the conversation of religious freedom versus how government intervenes at times in that. What do you feel like this film contributes to that conversation or is trying to say?
Oh gosh. I think their standpoint is very much obviously pro religious freedom, and that the government shouldn't be stepping in too much, I think that's what I think they're trying to get across is just that, that passionate faith that would, do what they believe is right, even if it meant, going against the grain, even if it meant, being imprisoned, I know that other places in the world are not as fortunate as we are in the United States. Like, this is a reality in other countries. I think in America, we completely forget that that's even a possibility. The fact that we have free speech, the fact that we have the freedom to practice our faith and our religion as we see fit is so taken for granted here. I know I've never even considered what it would be like to be like, wait, what? I can't have a Bible. I can't go to church. I can't, I think 2020 kind of made all of us a little like, oh, well, this is kind of weird. Like, I can't go to my place of worship, or I can't meet up with my community, or whatever it is. So we got like a little tiniest taste of it. But this film, I think, really, we get a lot of, Western Christians kind of thinking like, oh, what would I do? So I think that's their heart, is really to just get the conversation started and get people, thinking.
I love that. That's so true. I think that's what I really like about the film. I mean, I haven't seen it yet, but I assume from what I've seen so far is starting that conversation. And I love realism. So I'm not a big, fantasy sci-fi, but I love like just a little bit in the future. This is what could happen. Right. And so, to your point, when I traveled to India to do a documentary, I was shocked when we went there, and it was an anti-conversion law. Like, if you're born into Hinduism, if you're born into Muslim, being Islam, or a Christian even, which is very minor over there, anti-conversion, you cannot convert. And in us being outsiders, we were going with a mission group. We were making a documentary and a promo series, and they were doing outreach and such. And so again, going against the grain, breaking the law. And it was kind of like, hey, we're holding these big tent revivals, and there's a bunch of Hindus here, and technically what we're doing is illegal, and we could all be thrown in jail. And it was kind of like, and you didn't think about that. You're like, oh, that's just a reality in this world.
Right.
And so I love this film because, again, it lets people see, like you said, in a small town America, right? This could happen. This is what it might look like in your town, in your city.
Yeah.
If, with the conversation of religion and politics and the freedom that we currently have and what that would look like if it was different. So
yeah,
I cannot wait to see this.
I'm excited for it to be released. It's super exciting.
So, obviously the goal of the film is to kind of open up that conversation and get people talking and thinking, like you mentioned. Is there anything else that you would say your hope for this project is, or that you hope the audience response is when they watch this film?
I feel like it could be quite a polarizing film because we are kind of touching on the two things. You're like, don't talk about at Thanksgiving dinner. You don't talk about religion. You don't talk about politics. And we're like, we're going to talk about politics.
Let's make a movie about it.
let's do it. So I hope that it brings a lot more good conversation and good, like just a conversation starter than a lot of polarizing, I don't know. I just feel like there's so much polarization obviously in the right and the left in America, and then just in different denominations of Christianity. And it's really sad. I think it's really disappointing. And it's just really a sad state to see that there's no longer room for just dialogue. Like, we don't have to agree, but we could talk about it in a loving adult fashion instead of just like shutting somebody down, So I really hope that it just brings some good. I mean, yeah, let's debate about it, but like, let's do it in a really respectful way that honors the other person as a human. Like, we're all just humans in this human experience trying to do the best we can with what we have, with what we know, with what we believe, with what we've been given. So that's my hope for it.
That's amazing.
Well said.
Yep, very well said. Well, Micah, I know that your performance in the films that I've seen in the past has been amazing, so I know it will be nothing less in this. So we are excited to, one, just get behind it, promote it, get people excited about it, and even watch it ourselves. And so we appreciate you. Before we get you out of here, we got 3 questions that we like to ask every guest that comes on the show. So my first question for you, and this is the hardest one, but if you could go back in time in your career, what is one thing that you would have done differently?
That's actually easy for me. It would be become a better business-minded person. Nobody tells you when you get in this as a creator, like, oh, you're a small business owner. I'm like, no, I'm just an actor. No, you have to do taxes. You have to do that. You have to become an editor. You have to become a lighting person for your auditions. You're a small business owner. I never wanted to be a small business owner, and I'm terrible at it, quite honestly. Like, give me the script and let me go play on camera. Great. Financial side of it, it's for the dogs. So I would have, taken some business classes, just become a better entrepreneur, much more savvy business person. Cause then I wouldn't be where I'm at now and be like, oh yeah, I'm still kind of the broke actor living, gig to gig or having these 5 side hustles. That would be my, the one thing I would change for sure.
It's definitely an awakening once you're like doing the arts and you're like, I just wanted to make art. And then you figure out that you have to learn tax laws and how to set up an LLC and how to, all these bank accounts and just, it's all the contracts and everything. And so like, yes, to your point, it is entrepreneurship 101 just to be an artist. So
yeah. And I still need to go take those business classes because I don't know what the heck I'm doing.
Well, and to be honest, like I have so many conversations with my friends that they're all the exact same way. They're like, man, I still haven't set up an LLC and I still haven't done XYZ and I'm still, doing payments over Venmo and Zelle, all these things.
Yep.
And it's like, it's just, anyway, but I
think every creator though can relate to that, and every, small business owner as well, but every artist.
Yeah.
And it's an ongoing process. Like just because, you get to one level and so you do have an LLC or you have there's something else after that. There's always something more in building that business. Cause it's not like a business and you build it and you're done. You know, like it's always growth. So if you're growing as an artist, you got to be growing as a business too. And so that's partly what we do about the podcast. It's the balance of art and business in the Rough Cut Club. And it's so true. So I'm so glad you brought that up. And it's something I think everyone struggles with initially, but then also it's an ongoing thing. It's never going to go away. It's always a struggle.
Well, what is my second question for you is, what is one piece of advice that you can give to an actor? I'm going to make it about an actor trying to grow in their craft or their business.
Take business classes. That'd be my first. Theater.
You said do theater?
Yeah.
Why do you say that?
Anybody who's heard me like answer this question before will be like, oh, she's saying the same thing. Theater is, everybody says you can go from being a theater actor into a film actor. It's really hard to take a film actor and put them on stage though. Mm. Theater, you will work out some muscles, like literal muscles, but also mental muscles and performance muscles that you will never get in film. You have to know the whole script, top to bottom, backwards and forwards, and perform it every single night. You have to have that stamina. You have to know the story arc and your character arc. You have to really know how to work with a team really well. Not to mention doing I started in community theater. It's free. You don't have to pay for classes, especially if you're just getting in. You're like, I think I want to be an actor. Like a lot of people oh, well, go get into classes. I'm broke. I don't got money to go pay for $500 a month classes. Go do theater. It'll get you involved in the creative community. It's like I said, it's free. It will also just give you a built-in community of people who are doing this thing already. And a lot of them will do film as well. You'll learn so much from that community and just from the process and the experience of doing live theater, performing live. There's just nothing else like it.
I love that. I've said many times before, just to equate this to film as well, but a lot of people hate shooting weddings, but I feel like if you can shoot to me, weddings is like theater for an actor. Like if a filmmaker can shoot a wedding, then they can shoot everything because there's so much pressure on the day to move fast, get the shot right the first time, think through the story, do the audio, do everything. And so I'm grateful for my original upbringing to shooting those, because I feel like it helps me do anything moving forward. Granted, you still have to learn how to light and do all of that stuff, but
for sure,
you're utilizing every single piece of storytelling in weddings. And so I feel like that's just a good I guess equivalent on the filmmaking side. My last question for you, and I'll let you choose, who is one either filmmaker or actor who has inspired you or your work?
Oh man, just one?
Just one. I mean, if you got more than one, if you got a top three, I'll let you slide on a top three.
Oh man. I'll go with a male actor and a female actress.
Okay.
Charlize Theron has always been one of my favorites, just because I love that she is so freaking gorgeous, but she can be so unattractive and monster. You know, she will do the really, really hideous roles.
My wife and I were talking about that the other day. She is not afraid to not be her pretty version.
Yes. And I love that as a female. It's really easy to feel like your worth is in how beautiful you can be and being the ingenue. And I love the really ugly, gritty roles. Those are what I'm personally drawn to the most. And so I love that she can be, in my opinion, one of the most stunning human beings alive and be also so incredibly hideous. So I love that about her and how she's done her career. I know a lot of women would not do that role because they don't want to see themselves looking that way. And then another favorite is Denzel Washington. I just think he can do no wrong. I think he's just phenomenal. The roles he chooses are phenomenal. I think the very first movie I ever saw in theaters was Remember the Titans. Yep. And I was just in awe, like loved it. My mom is from that area that the whole story of Remember the Titans is about. So like the music and just everything about it, I was just like, I love this. And I just didn't even realize that he was an actor. I was just like, oh, that's the coach. That's the coach, you know, like he's just so good. Yeah, like I said, he can do no wrong.
Denzel's also, go ahead,
he's
Shane.
the GOAT, man.
Yeah,
and he's also not worried about looking bad in films, right?
Totally.
I mean, he plays kind of the, you know, the lead character, but with a lot of flaws. And have y'all seen Flight? Have y'all watched Flight? It's kind of
I watched it.
His one that flew under the radar, pun intended, but it's so good. And his performance in that, and just the ending and the twist. And anyway, it's one of those movies that leave you pretty sad, but it's a great ride and great performance by Denzel.
Yeah, he's also such a good dude off camera too, and like
that's what it seems like.
Yeah, like he's always had such a good head on his shoulders, and is always trying to like point people in a positive direction. And I think he's equally as amazing off camera as he is on camera. Yeah, so that's
I agree.
Awesome.
He just seems like somebody who doesn't really have an ego about him. Like he seems like he's just, you know, like a good dude who this is what he does for work. You know,
I love it.
I've always admired him.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Micah, thank you again so much for joining us. For those who want to get connected with you, what is the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Probably just Instagram. That's really the only one that I like, social media platform I'm on. And it's just my full name, Micah Lynn Hanson. And shoot me a message. I'd love to connect.
Awesome. Well, Micah, we are so grateful for you to just spend some time with us today in the studio. Like I said, it's always good to see friends. And so thank you again for joining us and spreading your wisdom. And we're excited for your new and upcoming film, Disciples in the Moonlight.
Thank you. I'm even more excited to be shooting with you guys sometime in the near future.
It's going to happen. It's going to happen. Shane and I are already plotting which film we're going to make it happen on, but we have meetings coming up soon. And so I'm sure you'll be in the conversation.
You guys are both so talented. And I was like, I love what you guys do with weddings, but I really, really like, I'm not having a wedding. So I really want to be in one of your films.
Yes, no doubt.
You know, after this podcast though, something just came to mind. So Joey and I have talked about, I'm just going to throw this out there, but Joey and I have talked about favorite movies and movie genres and types. And we're still trying to make the financial and strategic decision on what type of genre we're going to create first in the feature world. We've done shorts, we've done horror, we've done drama. Yeah. And we both have a passion or a place for musicals. Like I grew up. Yeah, I grew up watching musicals, being homeschooled. That was our entertainment. We could watch musicals. We couldn't watch, any of the other stuff. And Joey has a more recent connection, I think, to musicals, and he likes it. And then your background with theater and
I have goosebumps.
All right, hey Joey, log this away, man. We gotta talk about that feature.
100%. I don't know what it is about it, but the idea of filming a musical is like almost just like the epitome of like cinema performance. It's just encompassing all the arts, and you get to like be so theatric, honestly, in a film, and like the audience just buy into it. And so it's like actors getting to like sometimes overact, but like it makes sense and you like it. And then like DPs get to go nuts with like all of the lighting and like camera tricks, and it's just like.
And how often do you have like a choreographer on set for film? Like, you don't, unless it's a music video, but like having big dance numbers, are you kidding?
Oh my gosh. It's just fun. It sounds like so life-giving. So it's definitely on my bucket list to do a musical.
Yes.
Awesome.
So stoked.
Awesome. Micah, thanks again for joining us. We hope to see you in person soon, and we can't wait to see your film. But for those of you who are still with us, thank you guys so much for tapping into this episode of the Rough Cut Club. We'll see you next time.